We're coming right out of the gate with poker hands on this vlog. It would come 2 days after the worst session I'd had in 2026. Now, that wasn't life-altering, but it was an $1,800 loss nonetheless on a day where the most significant hand came when I would flop Broadway, not thinking my opponent would be calling for a runner-runner nut flush draw, but would hit said draw. Anyway, the hand that I'm bringing up came 2 days later when we would get a 3-5 game going. The good news was that what I want in a 3-5 game would be present on this day. Players that never jump in the 5-10 game and are not OMCs and are not poker professionals. They're just in there giving 3-5 a shot. Exactly what you're looking to get. Well, turned out I would get in a hand with one of those guys when I would raise pocket sevens to 25 over two guys who would limp call. Small blind and big blind also come in. So with 125 in, the flop is ace-10-7 with two diamonds. Check to me. With bottom set, I bet 100, knowing that I'm getting action from a lot of hands and a lot of draws. Small blind calls quickly. Others fold, and with 325 in, the turn rolls off an offsuit 4. He checks. Still going to be good here, basically every time. I bet 225. And he does not take long before calling again. So this hand just feels like a dream scenario for me. I'm hoping the board pairs on the river. And sure enough, with 775 in, the river rolls off the 10 of diamonds. So if he's drawing out a flush, it seems like the perfect card for me. I'm already debating what to do here, even though I'd pretty much already made up my mind. And it would turn out that he would do it for me, as he has 450 left in his stack and jams all in. I snap call, creating a $1,675 pot, and he shows ace-10 for a bigger full house. Now, I know once that flop rolls off, there's no way that I was ever not going to be doubling this guy up with the run out that was going to come out. But it kind of tilted me that we didn't get the money in earlier. It wouldn't have changed the result, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. So one of the first real coolers of 2026 goes the same way most of them did in 2025. So, yeah. Poker. It's fun. By the way, full disclosure, I've done a couple of pretty good vlogs over the years, if I may say so myself, but this probably isn't one of them. I'm just telling you. But vlog 337 would come the day after. Anna and I would play the Hills course at Red Hawk in Sparks. I would start off hot by my standards, out in 44, but would take a 9 on hole 10 and end up shooting 94 on the day. It would also come the week after having dinner with Marco from Trupoya and his wife Leslie from Trupoya. And there are two things that I just don't know. One, how Marco seems to always win casino-wide drawings. And two, how come every time the four of us hang out, the song Move, Bitch, Get Out the Way ends up coming on. I can't explain these things, but these things occur. This vlog would also come the day after I watched Rise of the 49ers on AMC. On one hand, I loved it. On the other hand, I do kind of wish we could finally stop reliving Montana and Rice and, finally start winning Super Bowls without them. Also, speaking of Joe, I would then look up to see him on CNBC, which, as you know, is the official channel of the OMC. Not really sure why he was there. Anyway, as for this vlog, Mr. Z is still in town for another week from Florida, so the game would start early, at 10 a.m. on table 1. Though there were a few guys in the game that I didn't really plan on playing mini hands against, and sure enough, this first hand would come against one of those. I looked down at ace-jack in early position and raise to 40. Mr. Z calls in middle position. Low-jack calls, and the big blind, in the midst of watching a show on his phone, also calls. So with 165 in, we're 4 ways to ace-jack-8, 2 hearts, giving me top 2. Big blind checks. I bet out for 110. Other 2 guys fold, and then the big blind proceeds to check raise me to 400. Now, generally speaking, it's kind of a policy of mine to not give a guy action who's watching TV shows on his phone while playing poker. And I can assure you, if you go with that policy, more often than not, you're going to be right. But I've just flopped top 2 pair in this spot. How nitty can I possibly be? I have to give him action. I'd bought in for $1,000. Game just started. I'm just going to go with this hand here. And get snap called. And once that happened, I became pretty convinced as to what I was going to see.
Pocket eights? Yeah. Once or twice? Twice, yeah.
The pot is $2,200. He does table pocket eights. We run it twice, so despite 4 chances to potentially hit a 4-outer to win half the pot, obviously I do not do that, and I get felted on the first hand I play on this day. So apparently, the lesson to this point in the vlog is that when my opponents flop bottom set against top 2 pair, I'm not allowed to win. And when I flop bottom set against top 2 pair, they are allowed to win. I rebuy for $1,500 and would quickly make back about 200, 3-betting kings and getting a little bit of action out of ace-10. I then look at pocket jacks under the gun and raise to 40. 2 guys call. And then the button, one of only 3 guys in the game that had seemingly been giving any action without holding the absolute nuts, makes it 225. I think about it for a minute, considered folding, but ultimately decided not to. Mr. Z in middle position calls as well as I expected him to, which was part of what I was looking at in this hand. And with 720 in, the flop rolls off King 10-6 with 2 hearts. Obviously, I don't love it. I check, middle position checks, and the button checks too. So we go to the turn, it rolls off the 4 of diamonds. I check again, kind of smelling a rat here. Mr. Z checks. And now the button bets $85 into $720. And as I have said for years, usually when something feels really off, it's because something is really off. Now, part of me did think he's just going for thin value with pocket queens here, knowing they're good. And it's possible that he would have done that, but obviously I can't beat queens either, and I don't want to try to bluff both of these guys out. So I just throw the hand away. Mr. Z does elect to see the river. And as I expected, I was drawing dead. As it goes, bet fold, and the button shows a slow-played set of kings. It always sucks when you are hoping to win a big pot with a set and your opponent is the one who actually flops one. And as you can see, my opponents lately have been good at making them at the right times. It has been just under 100 years since what I view as one of the most unbreakable records in sports was set. And that record is the record for the greatest quote ever given. After Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs for the 1927 Yankees, he said, "I'd like to see some other son of a bitch do that." I would then see Bill Simmons, who I love on his Rewatchables podcast, tweet out this video when talking about the Bulls trade deadline day, and I intend to find use for this in the future because I just couldn't stop watching it. That is hilarious. The next 3 hours provided absolutely no hands of, unfortunately, no hands that I actually won, which was frustrating because the game had potential at this point. We would then get a $35 open and a call in the cutoff. I looked down at queens in the small blind and raised to 175 here, expecting to get action, and sure enough, I do, as the original raiser folds, but the cutoff does not. So, with 400 in, the flop is ace 4-4 rainbow. I'm first to act here, and I would end up betting out for exactly half the pot. Still very confident that I'm good in this spot, though it's potentially going to be difficult to get called by worse. I still thought there was a chance of it. Cutoff thinks about it for a second, and ultimately mucks his hand. Still down over 1,000, I figured maybe I could cruise my way back into this game, and I would only have to call $5 more in the small blind to see a flop here in a multi-way pot. So with 40 in, we get a flop of 4, 5, 7 with 1 club. I decide to bet right out into it for 25. Low Jack is an OMC adjacent type. I say that because he's pretty much an OMC, but occasionally he can spaz out, and part of me thought this might be one of those times, because he would raise 100 more here. Now, hoping that I can either turn some equity with a club, or obviously the best hand with the straight, I'm going to make this call. And with 290 in, the turn is the king of diamonds. I check, and he bets big, a lot bigger than I thought here, seemingly with a big hand, worried about getting drawn out on. He fires 250, the exact kind of thing I was hoping might happen if I were to improve to a straight. But basically, like every other hand I played on this day, I didn't waste any time improving to the best hand, as one of the most unfortunate vlogs I've ever done would come to an end. Don't tell me I didn't warn you. All right, wrapping up the session, as I could continue to chase my losses, but I'm going to go to the gym instead. I like that idea better. Booking a $1,451 loss or so, I think is the number. And if you want to know how I'm feeling, the answer is not very good. Just seemingly unable to get on the right side of coolers. And then when I am, I find a way to lose anyways. You saw at the beginning of the vlog. In a perfect world, I would just play 3-5 for a while. But we don't live in a perfect world, insofar as that game basically never goes. So it's either 1-2 or 5-10. I'd rather go drive Uber or something than play 1-2. So it appears my only way out is through in this particular game. Anyway, I'm done talking for now. All right, not too often I take this section of the vlog late on a Sunday night, but I'm doing that. Just got done watching Super Bowl 60. You just got to look at the Peppermill Sportsbook from a couple of days before the game, after a Super Bowl that I think will go down in history as one of the most obvious bets in the history of the NFL. The Seahawks, clearly the best defense in the NFL, playing a Patriots team who had such an easy schedule to get here, who could barely beat a Denver Broncos team without their starting quarterback, who just doesn't have a lot of star power on the team. Somehow it's only a 4.5 point or 5.5 point, depending on where you get it, spread. I think this will be looked at like the other Super Bowl that is often discussed as the most obvious bet of all time. And that happened 40 years ago in Super Bowl 20, when the Chicago Bears were clearly a team that everyone knew to be one of the all-time great teams in '85. And they played also a New England Patriots team that dramatically overachieved that year, and everyone knew had no chance to compete in that game. And the Bears were favored by 10. They went on to win the game 46-10. Anyway, I don't think I'll live long enough to see another Super Bowl where it's so obvious in terms of how the game's ultimately going to play out. And as a 49er fan, man, this kind of stings. I mean, week one, they went up and beat the Seahawks in Seattle in a game where George Kittle was only healthy enough to play one series, in a game where Brock Purdy injured his foot so badly he had to miss the next 7 weeks, I believe it was. And the Niners still got out of there with a win. Now, I understand the Seahawks defense hadn't exactly hit its stride yet, but damn, it's just like, can't help but think. A couple things had gone differently in that Week 18 game at Levi's Stadium. It could have been the 49ers here in this one. And obviously, if the injury situation had gone differently, would have been an even bigger factor, because they still got as far as they did despite losing their two best defensive players, their #1 draft pick, and a bunch of other guys due to injuries. And with regards to this Super Bowl, I think I looked pretty good. My prediction on the air here in Reno was 27-10. So I didn't miss it by much. Anyway, that'll wrap things up for this edition of the vlog. If you haven't already, do us a big favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to follow along on Instagram at bendeach, do that as well. We'll see you back here next time.